Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Indy Investor Pod. And we're just going to stick at it here. We got quite a few episodes coming at you here in this series of just talking about different neighborhoods and areas here in Indy. Doing a little bit deep dive and having some people on the episodes that are investing in these areas, that are doing things in here, whether they're rentals or flips or projects or note investing or owner financing, those types of things. Those are the guests we're bringing these episodes, and we're going to do, like I said, a little bit more of a deep dive into some of these neighborhoods. I'm excited to have Randy and Dave back with me again on this episode, and we got Garrett Brooks on here joining us as well. So Garrett's just flipping properties all over Indianapolis, just a stud out there flipping properties and things. So Garrett, how's it going, man?
Good. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, all right. So for today's episode, fellas, we're going to be talking a little bit about kind of the northeast side of, so we're talking from like Sobro and Broad Ripple areas up towards the kind of the loop, the 465 loop, and like what you can do and what you can expect. And my general advice is just like, if you can find a property there and you like the price, buy it. Don't hesitate. Just jump on it. It's kind of just my philosophy. I know that's what I'm doing in a lot of these areas and things. But what we want to really get into is what people can expect from these different, like kind of, where the price points are, what people can expect, how big a projects they take on, little things like that. There's even some properties you can even just pick up and not really do much to, and even just put on the market the way market is right now. If you're finding, you can find some off-market properties and do some minimal stuff to and be able to get some pretty good money with too and things. But gentlemen, let's kind of start with a little bit of just the Broad Ripple and Sobro areas and things like that. So Dave, when we're talking about Broad Ripple, Sobro, is there really from an investor standpoint, do you look at a deviation between those areas, or is it just like, hey, no, I can jump in, I can do these areas and I'm okay? Like, how far down from Sobro can you go? Can you go down to the fairgrounds, or do you just want to stay up there towards Broad Ripple Ave as close as you can?
Well, I mean, I would love to stay as close to Broad Ripple Avenue, but there's nothing to be had up there that makes sense for a flipper for the most part. One things I can tell entry-level flippers, if they can find something there, they can overpay and they'll take a smaller return, but it's going to be guaranteed. You can almost rehab a house and you don't have necessarily a high-end price point that it can go for if you sell it, if you can sell it right away. We saw one come through our office today, 329.9, it's a 2-1. But it's prime time. It's 55th in college on it. So it will bring some sort of point. My cutoff personally is if I'm east of the tracks, I want to be the Monon, I want to be north of 46th. I know some of the guys now will drop down and go into the 44, 4300 block of Ralston, Crittenden, some of those streets. Mm-hmm. I'm still a little hesitant to jump down there, even though point of entry is great, and now the sale prices have consistently gone up in those neighborhoods.
Yeah, I think, kind of looking at, kind of right around where you're talking about, I think you can just find there's a lot of just 2-1s, there's small houses there and things like that. But it looks into, I always look at like, is there a basement? Can you do something with that? And then I've also seen people honestly like kind of take the roof off and go ahead and build up and add some bedrooms on top of some of those 2-1s.
Well, you can put in some of those little 2s with decent attics. You can put what we call shed dormers on them pretty inexpensively and increase your space.
Yeah.
But, one of the things, and I know Garrett will go there too, if you go east or west of the Monon, you now can go all the way to 38th Street and feel pretty comfortable on it. And because it's the same houses that you see north of 46 east of the tracks or east of the Monon. So it's a big area with a lot of opportunity in it.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. So, and Garrett, what are your thoughts on that? Even if you're going from anything in between like Broad Ripple Ave and 38th Street of what you can do there, or what you've done in the past, and what, you could advise other investors on what to look out for, man.
Yeah, I actually, Dave said he stays away from under 46th on the east of the Monon, but I love that area. Just the percentage returns you can get are crazy. You got not quite as many buyers as Broad Ripple, but enough where you can get whatever you want for them over there too. It's still like crazy and they're cheap. I've done, I do a handful in the good part of Broad Ripple, but they're just hard to find, and percentage wise, the returns aren't as good because they're just a lot more expensive. But yeah, I mean, you can go anywhere that you can put Broad Ripple in the name right now and it'll sell. And I mean, a few years ago, 54th, 56th was the cutoff. Now it's 43rd, 42nd.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So anywhere you could find them would be worth it for the right price.
Yeah, I always think of that kind of just underneath, like from in between like Kessler and like 42nd and like all those properties around there. Like I used to teach when I moved out to Indianapolis 7 years ago. I taught at Christ the King School, which is right around there, and I taught there for 3 years. And I was like, now in my head of like, man, I should have just been going out and like putting like mailers and or like door hangers on everybody's door and stuff 3 years ago, but I didn't know anything about that.
You can retire, Brian.
Right, exactly. So Randy, when you're talking to buyers and stuff and what you're seeing from them, just anything around like when buyers are like, what are you hearing from them? Are they able to get properties around there? Are they too hard to come by, or what are you seeing around that area, man?
A little bit of both. So, I mean, everyone's like, hey, I want to get a property in Broad Ripple. I'm like, everybody does, but you know, it doesn't make sense for you to spend that much money and expect, you know, to flip it and then make some money. Yeah, properties values are going up there, but it's just hard to find anything. So if someone just talks to me about Broad Ripple in general, their best option is gonna, you know, be sticking around the Sobro area and even like south of what we always thought Sobro ended at, kind of what Garrett was talking about, that area just north of the fairgrounds. That's the opportunity. That's where there's still houses available where you can get in and not overpay and still have enough spread to fix the property up and make a decent return. And then days on market are single digits still. So things are selling, but it's definitely a hard area to get into. And when something becomes available, there's going to be you know, multiple people interested, just like on the retail market. On the wholesale side, there's going to be multiple buyers and investors that want to buy that property, and it's pretty nuts. But if you could snatch one up, you got a solid deal.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So and then moving up, kind of from there, kind of, you know, go outside of Broad Ripple, you know, kind of cross over Keystone there. You talk about even like the Glendale area and things. I mean, is that still like as desirable, and is it easy to flip there as well, or what do you kind of expect from there? Garrett, I think you've done a couple projects in that area as well. Like, what do you see from that?
Yeah, I've done a couple. They seem harder to find over there. Did one last year. It was a little tricky to sell for some reason, but I think now you won't have any issues. I think it just, you know, all about the timing. But yeah, there's now anywhere around that area, you'll find a buyer. The prices keep going up over on that side too. I mean, there's the area that has the Broad Ripple type houses, and then you go, I think it would be a little north, and there's more like ranch style houses and things like that. And I've done both, but the Broad Ripple type ones on the other side of Keystone have just shot up in value in the past year. Yeah. Those used to be harder to sell, and now they're the same as Broad Ripple. So
yeah. So, and Dave, I wanted to ask you, kind of pick your brain about this a little bit, or just kind of throw this out here. So when people start investing in Indianapolis, or they, you know, especially out-of-state investors and things, you know, the two neighborhoods they usually hear of right away are usually like Fountain Square, Bates Hendricks, those areas, but then they hear of Broad Ripple as well. When you're working with people that are trying to flip homes, or you're advising people that are looking to invest here in Indianapolis, what's kind of the difference between, you know, kind of areas like we have like a Fountain Square or Broad Ripple, since those are kind of the first two neighborhoods that a lot of people hear about when they think about Indy investing?
Well, the outside guy coming in, it's almost impossible in my mind for them to get Broad Ripple or Glendale. Yeah. If they're coming in for a rental purpose, then I'm saying, okay, you're going to get a little less return in the Broad Ripple, Glendale area, but you're going to be, in my mind, you know, I've been in the real estate business a long time, and those areas have never stopped appreciating. Yeah. So those areas will, you know, because they're completed, they're done, they're an extremely high percentage of owner occupants on it. So if it's a buy and hold for the guy, I'm telling he's probably going to do better buying one house in one of those areas than two houses in some other area. As far as return on investment, no hassles, pretty tough to do the burst strategy on those those neighborhoods because of the the difference with Glendale, Broad Ripple for the most part, it's hard to add value on it because you're starting with a pretty good product going in.
Right.
So it's a lot harder to add. I mean, flippers make money by adding value.
Yeah.
In the amount of work that they do, and it's really hard. Where Garrett does a really, really good job at, he tends to get his houses done very timely, and he's not his cost is relatively very good from what I can see, which puts him at a real advantage to the average person because he has really, really good crews. I mean, I've sold Garrett probably 3 or 4 of stuff and thinking, man, I can't do this. And he just knocks it out of the park. And, I'm thinking, God dang it, why don't I just partner with him instead of sell it to him?
Keep selling to me.
So I don't think you've not bought anything that I've called you on.
Yeah, I'm ready to buy if there's a good deal like that.
So is that what is that what you're kind of looking at in these areas? You're talking about, not being able to do like big value adds, but being able to, really just kind of really update these and bring them to what a family wants now. There's gonna be some renovations obviously too, but is it more updating and being able to get them done, like you said, even just quicker and for the right budget to be able to kind of make those profits?
Well, I mean, every Bates Hendricks Fountain Square project that I've looked at, you're $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 typically for me to get that property back in play. Where you go to Broad Ripple, if you spend 60 on one of those houses, in my mind, you've spent a lot. So you can get in and out quicker, which, I know Garrett looks at return on his capital, which is obviously the best way to look at it. But in the people that don't have the risk tolerance that Garrett has or I have, then they can go into Broad Ripple and they might put 200 out and only make $15,000. Well, that's a good return for their criteria in that neighborhood. I can't take a flip and have that much capital out and only make $10,000 or $15,000 on it for the time, for the time spent. But the novice, the entry level guy, he can do that and feel very, very comfortable doing that and making a fair return. What people don't realize, if you make on a $200,000 house, if you make $15,000 in 4 months, then that's pushing a 20% return on your capital.
Yeah.
So, and most novice investors would be extremely happy with that.
So, and Garrett, with those, are you taking on, like, how big of projects are you going to take on in those areas, or what do you advise people to do? Are there even like the big projects to really do, or should they even focus on those for a flipper? Would you advise that? Or is it like, hey, let's just kind of take on these ones that you can put in like 20, 30 and be okay on and get 20 or 30 out of it?
In Broad Ripple?
Yeah. Or just around that area. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'll go all out on them. The big thing I've started doing is finishing basements and adding a bedroom.
Nice.
You can go from a 2-1 to a 3-2 pretty easily. It really changes what you can get for it. I've never added square footage just because of the time that would take. But yeah, I mean, it really just depends. If the house is in good shape, because a lot of your competition in Broad Ripple isn't updated and people don't care. Doesn't have the open floor plan. It's got a real tiny kitchen, but people still buy it. So sometimes it's not worth going all out and making it fancy because you won't get your money back. It's really just case by case. Depends on the original condition of the house and things like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that's really important when you're looking at, not just looking at the comps, but looking at all the pictures of what they did to the properties and stuff like that. Do you have to go all Chip and Joanna and blow out, open up the whole floor plan, or no, it's people are selling with these, the kitchens and it's divided and these houses are still like that and it's still selling. So being able to look at that, I think is really important. Randy, as we're talking about just kind of this whole area of, Sobro and Broad Ripple and Glendale and Sobro might be a little different here, but when we're looking at kind of, flipping versus renting here in these areas and things, do you think it's advisable for somebody, like, should they pick it up and rent a property here? Or is it and hold it, or is it just like, hey, go ahead and flip it? That's what you're probably going to be able to do here. I know I had a couple of friends that were just looking to rent around that area, and like they couldn't find anything. Is it just like, is it just all families and homeowners and owner occupancies there, or are we still able to rent there and stuff?
Yeah, I think if someone was coming in to pick up a rental, excuse me, I would just try to target things south of 46th Street. That's still an area where you can flip, but I think as Sobro just kind of gets scooped up and everything ends up being redeveloped and rehabbed, all that activity is going to go back down, and those values are going to keep flushing down south of 46th Street. So if someone can get a property there now, and if their goal is just to keep it as a rental, that's great. I think your value is only going to go up. And then if you're north of 46th Street, I'll just focus on flipping there just because the market's so hot, and you could really push the prices there. So right now, that's what I would recommend, but you could still flip or rent anywhere south of 46, but I'd keep my options open there.
Yeah. So, all right, gentlemen, let's move up just kind of like just inside of the loop of 465. Even we can start with kind of going around there. So you have the Nora area and, the kind of Keystone of the Crossing and over to Allisonville and those areas and things like there. Is there opportunity? Is there room for investors to get in there and do stuff? Dave, have you done some projects there? Those areas?
We just finished one at 82nd Allisonville. We bought from a wholesaler. We just finished one at 79th and Dean Road. I know Garrett finished one right around the corner because he called me. He says, "You really got that much for that house?" And then we're doing one at We're going to be doing one at 70th and Allisonville. So it's hit and miss. It's like like you said at the start of the show. If it's over there and you can buy it, you got to buy it.
Yeah.
And just turn it, because it's going to sell for whatever top dollar is. And it's just like, Garrett said earlier, I don't typically sell before my houses are completed so I can maximize value. I sold that one, prior to being completed and probably left 10 grand on the table on it. Even though I made a fair profit on it, it was just, we could have done a little bit better and didn't have, you don't have to deal with the people prior to the closing.
Yeah.
So
this is the opportunity. Randy and I had that conversation, a couple of times over the last couple of weeks of just like whether you're wholesaling, whether you are a buy and hold investor that's selling off, some of your inventory or you're flipping properties now. This is like the time to get top dollar, whatever you can do. And, Garrett and Dave and I were talking about that before we started recording of like, they're selling properties before they're even finished. Well, maybe maybe you don't do that because when they do get finished, you might be able to get, even more money from them and things like that. So, it's just the way the market is right now. And especially in these areas right now, what I look at is like, if I can find anything off market, if sellers are trying to sell their property off market, or, even other wholesalers or other investors have properties that are off market in these areas, I just look at it as like, hey, when's the last time they were on the market? And if nobody else has seen them before, like I snatch them up because I know I'm gonna be able to put them on the market like tomorrow and sell them with probably even doing minimal stuff to them. But with you guys being able to, go in and do the work and flip them there, it's going to be a big a good product there and stuff. So, Garrett, when you're kind of moving up into like Allisonville, what are some, like, even just through some of these areas and some things that you're looking to do, what are some price points that, that buyers can expect to maybe pick up some projects to be able to do some stuff with here? Of like, is there a good range that you would recommend or where you see people at? I know that there's values are kind of all over, but is there a good space for an investor to kind of get into these areas?
Well, it's all the areas have way different prices there. Some areas, if you can find something in the hundreds, it's a steal, and some in the 300s, it's a steal.
Yeah.
So really just depends. You're pretty safe if you can find something in the hundreds anywhere around there, though.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, there's certain pockets over there that are just people pay insane prices. So you just kind of have to know the areas to know what it's worth, which might be tricky for an out-of-state guy seeing something for 300 right next to something for 150 and, not knowing the difference. So you really have to know the areas specifically to say what a good deal actually is.
If it's got Washington Township in front of it, especially Washington Township schools, then, the price point, you can almost create your own price point. There's stuff over by the river that's all in a floodplain, and the floodplain doesn't even affect me anymore.
Not up there.
I want to know that it's in it, but in the same token, it doesn't affect value.
Yeah, the demand's still there.
I mean, we had one about a year and a half ago, and while we were redoing it, it flooded. I mean, bad. And I was scared to death on it. We finished it out, and then I wrote all kinds of disclaimers that this house does flood, and everything else, and they were still fighting over it. And just think, bring your boots because you're going to get water in the next year. But I mean, we just showed them picture. I mean, I didn't want them to call me after the fact. And we reduced the house substantially, made a modest profit, but it didn't matter,
When you guys are looking at properties here and like kind of taking on projects, how much do you consider lot size with these? Just as more than likely, there's going to be, people are buying here for their family or even for their forever home and stuff like that. That's what they're kind of looking for when they're moving into these areas, I think, a lot of times. So how much are you considering like the lot size of, somebody able to put up a playground or being able to, just have even just a yard to be able to do stuff in, to entertain and things like that? Is that a huge thing when you guys are looking to pick up projects, or is it just like, no, just if it's a project, it's a project?
I've never looked at lot size. And then on that note, even if it's on a busy street, I used to stay away from those, but now it doesn't matter. I mean, maybe
busy streets don't bother me anymore.
The
only thing I'll stay away from, and I know they still sell, is if your only parking is on the street, then I'll stay away from it. There's a few. Emerson Heights has some of that, and some of the other areas on the east side. Well, just you have to park on the street, and then that I'll stay away from.
So, Randy, when you're working with buyers here and you're looking at kind of even just like price points and what the market's doing right now, when you're going from anything around from like Nora over through Allisonville and stuff like that, is that like, where should people kind of expect to maybe be, or kind of like, what's the market looking like there? Are there even deals on the market, or is it just like, what's it looking like over there, man?
Yeah. I mean, houses available are slim, especially there. I mean, it's a very high demand place to live. If anyone wants to stay in Indy on the north side, they're going to be in Nora or, throughout Washington Township there. So, like one thing to consider, like going up through Allisonville, like going up on Allisonville Road. I mean, those are some old established neighborhoods. So everything's like in a little subdivision there. So the price points, like Garrett kind of pointed out earlier, price points are everywhere around there. You have houses selling for $250, and then you have houses selling for $450. That could be across the street from Allisonville, but because they're in different subdivisions, they're, different kind of builds. Some have larger lots. So it's kind of similar to like, if you're looking at comparables, it's kind of similar to looking at stuff outside the loop, because things are kind of in their own little neighborhood. So it's good to find comparable homes, but property values are, I mean, they're kind of scattered around, ever from that entry level price to someone who's got a little bit more money who can afford a $500,000 home.
Right. So one of the areas I do want to talk about, because I do feel like there's still some deals here that you can pick up. They're a little bit more sparingly, but like the Devonshire area, kind of go a little bit further east of Glendale and stuff like that. So that Devonshire area, we've done a handful of deals there over the last couple of years. And I think it's a great area too, where you can kind of pick up some. There's going to be some where you can kind of get a pretty good price point, but still be able to do some stuff with. And honestly, this is an area too, I think you can possibly, even if you're looking for a buy and hold, that you're able to kind of hold on to for a little bit, to be able to sell later, or just have something in your portfolio that's a little higher price that you can still rent out in a good neighborhood. I think Devonshire is kind of an area that you can still probably do that in. Dave, what do you think about that?
Well, it's, I mean, we would have no issue, anything over to, it's Devon Woods around 38th Street, and up to Devonshire starts at about 46th, I think. So anything Devonshire is gold, and anything in Devon Woods now is the entry levels, maybe around 100, but those can easily kick to 230, 240. on it. So they're typically, what I like about those neighborhoods over there, they're almost all the houses are really good bones.
Yeah.
So you're not starting with anything that was poorly built in the beginning.
Yeah.
You're just starting with something that's terribly maintained.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, they're good bones. So you're a little bit, they're outdated, like where you can really go in and like freshen them up and do some pretty cool stuff to them. And I think there's some really neat things in there and stuff. So I really always say, like, anything with Devon in the name, I'm going to pick up right now, whatever I can. So, Garrett, have you done any projects out like kind of further out on that east side, kind of just inside the loop there, whether it's Devonshire, Avalon Hills, or anything like that?
I've got, well, one of the ones I regret selling pre-market, I just sold last week, and I think it's Devonshire, like 56th and Binford. Is that what you're talking about?
Yep.
On Radnor Road. Yeah. So I have one there right now that I probably could have gotten a lot more for, and I had one last week. I just closed on same area, 56th and Binford. It's crazy over there. I mean, a couple of years ago, you stay away from there, and now it's just more ranches in Washington Township, which everyone wants. So
and I think the flippers today, what's really helping us is new construction is just pushing so high that these houses in the 230, 240, 250 range is $150,000 cheaper than what new construction is going to be. And the new builders, my son just bought a new house up in Fishers, and the builder is raising his prices $3,000 a week.
Wow.
Yeah, every week they raise it $3,000.
So Dave, with that, do you think it's with the price points and stuff too, is that even price points of new builds, but even I feel like people are moving back into areas like this, what we're talking about, especially just inside the loop, that maybe they wouldn't have in the past, because they need a new house, but there's just some character with these neighborhoods as well, where some of the new builds out there, they don't have the character and things like if you're looking at the developments in Fishers. So I feel like that's why people are moving back in a little bit.
And I think the younger kids are, I say younger kids, the mid 40s now. Their parents basically either came from those neighborhoods and got away from them, and now they look back that they can go back in and have an affordability. They can't go north and have affordability, and some people can only, I say only, spend $250,000, but that becomes an issue if you go north of 96th Street. Sure, they'd rather live in Carmel, rather live in Fishers, but that same two-story, or same square footage is 400 there, where they can drop down and get an affordable house at 250 on it. And there's still a lot of houses that are owner occupants that just were not maintained, so there becomes opportunity for us. Because the beauty of the buyers that we're attracting, they can't do anything. I mean, they can't lift a hammer, nor do they have a desire to lift a hammer.
Yeah.
So we can take the product and give them what they really want. So they're flight's the wrong word, but they're coming back into these neighborhoods that their parents left 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Really good stuff and really good tips, guys. Really appreciate it. A lot of really good info on these areas. And this is one of those areas, like it's really easy for an investor to be like, yeah, let's get into it. But getting at the right price point, knowing what you're getting into. Do you really need to do? I love the fact that Garrett even kind of threw that in there too. I think it's a really good tip of, hey, do you need to, open up any walls? No, we can keep it here because that's what's selling. That's what's doing pretty well. So, knowing those things and kind of knowing what's going on in those areas, I think is really good stuff as well. So, Randy, any last thoughts from you as we get out of here on this episode, man?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone would love to do more deals in all of these areas we talked about on this episode. Very hot areas, but very hard to find anything. But yeah, just big fans. I personally, I would live in any of those areas and, be happy with, everything around me. So, just happy for these guys to be on with us today and share their thoughts on, that area of Indianapolis, and hopefully we get more deals there.
There we go. There we go. So if you need anything from us, definitely hit us up if you need anything at all. I'm always here to help you out. You can hit me up at brian@simplewholesaling.com, or you can get randy@simplewholesaling.com, or have any questions for him about any of our properties. Dave, if somebody wants to reach out to you, where's the best place for them to go?
Probably my email. It's dshort@c21sheets, SCHEETZ.com.
Awesome. And then Garrett, I'm sure if anyone has any questions for you about how you're doing things, or just, I'm sure you're going to get hit up with a ton of people that are going to want you on their buyers list now if you're not on it yet. Where's the best place for them to reach out to you, man?
It'd be Garrett@indiesagent.com.
Awesome stuff, guys. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And with that, this is another wrap for this episode of the Indy Investor Pod, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.